Breath of Fire 3 with only learned abilities? I will replay this game until there is nothing left. Before we start, I do want to define what I mean by learned abilities. These are strictly abilities you can learn from enemies in combat. When foes use techniques, you can use the examine command to acquire a decent pool of them for personal use, you know, if luck favors ya. To avoid another one-shot run, naturally learned skills as well as master abilities are off the table, and all we're allowed to use is what our foes bequeath unto us. We'll skim through the intro, get our party in gear, and set off to learn some abilities. First up, we get Influence. This is useless. You can use it to trick a couple bosses, and it's great for berserk characters like Were-Tiger Ray, but we won't be using him. What we need is Damage, which comes in the form of Blind, and is learned from the Rippers. If you've watched my one-shot video, you know this. If you haven't, it does a fraction of your melee damage and applies Blind to a susceptible foe. We're gonna need something else, so we'll grab Burn from the Mage Goo, an extremely low-powered fire spell for Tipo. Then Ryu will learn Unmotivate from this goblin who lost his goblin boss, and this does literally nothing. Like, it's just actually nothing. I got lucky with Ray learning Blind and Tipo learning Burn, so I didn't have to waste my Soul Skill Ink, which are expendable items that allow you to switch skills between characters. And that's it for now. Let's get some better gear and see how far these two attacks will get us. Ascending the mount, we're attacked by the Nui, and due to Ray's blind sticking immediately, he barely hit us and we slowly chipped him down. I did have to make a critical choice before starting the fight, attack or defense formation. We could get Ray's 8 damage up to a whopping 12, or we could get a 50% defense boost at the cost of a third of our agility. Given that our agility is low, we're not going to be doubling anyone, so a 1.5 times defense boost sounds great, thanks. My boys did counter twice, which sucked, but I can't do much about that, unfortunately. Now that we've Ray back, we can fight Puff Goose for experience, but I genuinely think we'll be fine. If the new cops another blind, we should be right to very slowly win. I also pick up Gloom from the Cave Bats. Blind nerfs Ray's attack just enough to get them to critical health, which nets Tipo the overpowered ability, which we'll be seeing shortly. I was right about the new, even without the blind proc, which only happened a couple turns before his death, he fell pretty easy. He's reasonably weak to fire, which took our low power to a medium-low heat. This fight's steady. Ray nearly eats it, but Nui dies just in time. Perfect. Before heading to the McNeil compound, I apprenticed Tipo under Migas for a couple extra points of magic, though we will never reap his sweet skill offerings. And then as every good game of Breath of Fire 3 continues, so does our desire for fishing. I pack my aquarium before giving it all up for a silver knife for Ryu, as well as a waistcloth and iron helm for the boy. You know what happens next. We break into a compound and kill a dog.
2 times Pimpy, 3 times Babe.
The dog barks up Snap, a low-powered melee attack which lowers the enemy's defense. Tipo casting Gloom on this guy actually sticks, and coupled with Ryu's silver knife makes short work of him, taking our damage from under 10 to like 30-ish. Gloom, to my understanding, sets an enemy's holy resistance to 0, regardless of what it was prior, and the silver knife has anti-undead properties, which I'm pretty sure is just the holy element. After learning Jump from Rocky the Chicken, we use the same strat, with Ryu doing 30 damage and Ray doing anywhere from the mid-20s to the high 50s with Jump. As these bosses only have slightly north of 200 health, it's pretty easy. People were talking about this challenge like it'd be difficult. Once again, Ray leaves us, and both my guys are useless unless we're against undead foes, both struggling to hit 2-digit damage values. But I've got a plan. Finding a vault in the wild, Tipo promptly masters Charge, a low accuracy melee strike based on your defense over your power. I'm not sure of the accuracy of this bad boy. It seems to be about half, maybe slightly lower, but it does a respectable 30 to 40 damage when it connects, which is pretty good. After clapping the first 3 mini McNeils, I can confirm it's like 25% accuracy at best. I honestly get more damage out of doing 5 to 10 with Burn. The fourth fella ghouls down the same, we get Ray back, give him the silver knife, and approach Amalgam. I feel like I've been here before. Due to the silver knife's damage bonus and Jump basically being a regular attack with more wild damage variants, we win with ease. At one point my Catboy does over like 100 damage, and that's pretty crazy. Stripping the boys off before going for a horsey ride, very classy, we slap Ryu under Bunyan for those sweet physical stats. Unfortunately, again, we'll be leaving the abilities behind, but then we head eastward, where we get our next technique, Double Blow, from this nut troop. Double Blow is a staple of a casual run. It does 2 attacks at 80% damage. On paper, like 160% of your standard attack for 2 AP, that's not bad. It's far better than anything we've had access to thus far. though I think each attack calculates separately, so you're getting an 80% power calculation twice instead of the 100% of a standard attack. Still, a consistent attack is better than nothing. After some more horsing around, we grab Nina, rush the catacombs, and collect a bone dart from the ghoul. I don't remember this doing much damage, but it does confuse enemies, and our underused mage has no attacks, so I'll take literally anything. Doing a quick stock up in Windia, we get recaptured by the horses and taken to Genmel, my favourite place in the world, because of the next ability, Last Resort. There's not much else until we get Momo, and then we acquire Blitz from the Hyperbots in her tower. Now, it's time to organise some techniques because only Ryu has been able to attack, and it's pissing me off. We give Nina Burn and Charge, not for any particular reason, but it'd be nice for her to do something other than heal. I don't want this run to become Ryu using Double Blow, so I give it, as well as Blitz and Last Resort, to Momo. This leaves Ryu with Blind, Jump, Gloom, and probably something else which I forgot, which will definitely be useful. From here, we're heading to the dump, and it's in this dump where we'll find two new techniques, Rest and Air Raid. These are both complete dog shit. Rest recovers a couple health, and Air Raid has a chance of cancelling an enemy's turn while doing a crumb of damage. It sounds okay, but Nina learnt it, and I don't want to waste skill ink moving it to Ryu. As Momo's physical oriented, I grab the Artemis cap for her here, which increases her accuracy, and we tackle the boss, Mutant. He's actually very easy. I'm a little underleveled, and if we equip the Flame Chrism on Momo, she can Last Resort into a double blow for like 200 damage a turn. This might be the fastest I've ever beaten this dude, even quicker than the one-shot run, because I had to set up and that took ages. Well, we get recaptured and have to do what will probably be the hardest part of the game, as it usually is. We've got two goals here. One is to get Frost Strike from old One Eye, and two, refer to one. My goal is to give Momo the Ice Chrism for taking out the Dodai. He obviously has an ice weakness, as he's standing in lava. I'll send out Nina and Ryu to clear at least one of the first two enemies, and then have Momo clear the rest. I'll use a skill ink to give her blind, as I'll probably need it, as well as the ice ring, and after learning Frost Strike, I'll Ivory Dice the Dodai for a massive Momo power up. This guy gives you like 3,000 experience, and Ivory Dice doubles the experience gain, and 6,000 at this point for one character is pretty big. This was actually quite tough, but after a few tries it went exactly as expected, and I honestly can't believe it went so smooth. Giving Air Raid to Ryu was legit. It did decent, consistent chunks of damage, and I was able to just drop Claw and Koa? I never went first, so nobody lost their turn. I think my Ryu has 1 agility, thanks Bunyan, but the damage was pretty good. Nina died instantly, and then Momo rocks up. We slap the Ivory Dice down on the Dodai and use Double Blow on Patrio when we're not the proud recipients of a critical hit, and then a Healing Herb when we are. Eventually, he starts cracking off Frost Strike. We learn it through some Force of God, and then we slap the Dodai until our double blows run out. Oh no. I did use blind here. I tried to get Patrio blinded, but it never stuck. However, when I ran out of AP, it was handy as a 0 AP cost ability. It didn't do 2 lots of 50 damage like double blow, but it did like 30 to 40, and with a multivitamin on my own Dodai to prevent his death, we just edge out a victory. I give Ryu Frost Strike, put everyone in defense formation, and head to face Emitai. Last Resort with Momo into a Blitz clears them after a few turns. Last Resort adds your defense value to your attack and then sets your defense to 0, and Blitz does 3 physical hits to every foe at the cost of 50% of your maximum health. Nina learns Spirit Blast from Emitai's boys, which ignores defense but is so low powered that it is genuinely useless. I know I've called like 5 goated abilities useless so far, but I mean it with this one, it sucks. And with that, Gar slaps our soft belly a bit and we're off to face our fate, Stallion, one of the toughest bosses in the game. Now, one immediate debuff is that Gar can't be customized before entering this fight, but I teach these 3 stooges how to blitz, try to keep my boys as healed as I can, and we enter the stables. Honestly, Stallion wasn't too bad. I fronted hard knowing that whatever damage I dealt as quickly as possible could be made up for with some defensive play in the later fight. That's generally the opposite of the conventional wisdom with Stallion, but you know, it worked for me. He opened with the Learnable Barrier, which I decided to leave behind in favour of the free turn. Momo used it as an opportunity to hit the Last Resort into double blows, doing 100 damage per hit, and they hit most of the time, God bless her. Gar would heal, Ryu would use Air Raid or Frost Strike. Air Raid seemed to do more damage, but I've never learned Frost Strike from Patrio because of the pain it causes, so I used it just because I had it. Before long, Gar falls, and shortly behind him are our 2 horses. Nobody cares about the windier events, but this shot of the bridge always floors me. Just lovely. The best part of old video games is the form that bright sparks of inspiration take. This shot didn't need to exist, but the care and attention to detail shines eternal. That was gay. We train Bait up, which is actually quite hasty with Last Resort, both for him dealing damage to Momo, as well as boosting his health from copping damage from Momo. He clears Zig with flying colours, then we push to the lighthouse and come up against Gazer. Tuh, this dude ain't so tough. Sure, he hurts a lot, and Mikasa Mean Gaze made me cry, but the only major threat is when he nails a Last Resorted Momo with Confusion. She's like weirdly accurate when she's hitting your own guys. He hits pretty hard, but it is spaced out. There's plenty of room to heal. This fight is basically free. I haven't had much of an issue thus far. Considering my reduced arsenal, this run's been pretty simple and clean, and then the dolphin drags me below surface and fucks me. I was cocky, started with the Last Resort, and then he one-shot Momo. Honestly, it's probably time I was punished for that. The fact that I've gotten away with it for so long is comical. I get Momo back up, but with Nina's low stats and lack of utility, it's not long before we're down a member, and even in defense formation, Momo ain't far behind. I'm gonna have to ponder a strat. I get Nina a couple levels because she's a sponge, and in the process, I find a lizard who uses Wind Strike, so we learn that, and we approach the mammal once more. Rockin' back in, we're cruising at about 60 damage from Momo's double blow and 30 to 50 from Ryu, depending on the attack. Air Raid is the MVP of this run. It is legitimately out-damaging the elemental strikes. I wonder if I could cancel the Dolphin's turns if Ryu were faster. Anyway, there are two techniques to learn here, Tsunami and Intimidate. The first lowers enemies' health by half if it connects, with the second halting their attack. Once you realise he uses either Intimidate or a melee attack on his first and second turns, and then Tsunami every third turn, you can stay measured, decrease his health while accounting for his reprisals. I did have to abandon Intimidate, unfortunately, but I got Tsunami. Probably not going to use it. Moving through the volcano, another technique, Lava Burst, which hits everyone for decent fire damage, and then I push into the next boss for my shot at Wall of Fire, a decently strong single target fire attack. Before this, we definitely got our fire vaccinations, shoot some fucking asbestos right into our veins. I dropped Scylla with ease. Between Momo's Frost Chrism and Frost Strike on Ryu, he stood little chance, but they're still not paying up that fire tech that I want. I have to effectively throw the fight because I want that ability, and then Gar finally grabs it. Now we can go gloves off. The ice-based double blows from Momo, snap from Ryu because he ran out of AP, and of course jump on Gar. Charybdis falls not long after, and it's the slow crawl against Gishan, who uses expensive healing before he runs out of AP and then falls to his own lack of utility. Not me though, I've got more utility than ever. That's one thing I've always loved about Breath of Fire 3. Like, is it the most balanced or fair game? No. There are parts where difficulty spikes and others where you're cruising. Overall, it's a fairly easy title, but there are so many ways to approach it. You can find yourself in a suboptimal position if you lean too hard on the various techniques and stat paths available. People often contrast having a vast system with a deep system, implying a contradictory nature. They are exclusive, but I genuinely believe the character builds in Breath of Fire 3 are deep because they are vast. You can explore and experiment with all kinds of stupid abilities and sink into something that just does the job. Like, Air Raid's not gonna one-shot a boss, but it is going to do significantly more damage than Snap, and that's all I care about in this specific playthrough. And if that's not depth, then I don't know what is. Speaking of things I care about, a new technique, Flying Kick, which does damage based on your agility. I almost certainly will not use this due to its low accuracy, but Air Raid has been the MVP of this run, so who knows. I take all the equipment and skills off Momo and then head to face the time skip. The Gar fight is insane. It's here that we learn that Air Raid does work as intended. Ryu outspeeds him, and in the 6 or so turns I used it, Gar actually lost one of his. That's crazy! You know what else is crazy? Time skip. Moving through the mines, we get Dows from the Jint Roach, which sets a foe's fire resistance to 0, making fire attacks do 3 times damage. Well, that's nuts! Unfortunately, we can't use it against the next casual filter, D-Zombie, but we didn't need it. There's a fire sword on Ryu, but he outspeeds the dragon. We've got 2 status block and trinkets on, Gar gets confused once, Ryu poisoned once, and with some careful healing, we cleared him quite easily. Ryu was using Air Raid, but due to the D-Zombie status resist, he never lost a turn. Gar used Last Resort and Jump, which was doing up to 300 damage per hit, which is honestly pretty good, especially considering we're only level 18 with Ryu and 15 with Gar. We're marginally underleveled, but we had no issues. Ogre Road sees 2 new techniques. Mind Flay, a weak melee attack that lowers IQ, like we need any bloody more of that, and Focus, which we can get from this mysterious were-tiger, but he kills me while I'm waiting for it. On second thought, I don't want to end up in another one-shot position. We'll leave it behind. Focus is far too powerful. Moving past the tiger, we rush over to get Nina. I give her these powerful fire techniques that I gained before the time skip, and wow, that's some truly abysmal damage. I give Mikba a try and get destroyed, just defaced. His reprisals are what's doing it, and they suck. I'm using elemental techniques, which he's got a 3 resistance to, dropping their power to 75%, and I'm down a guy, because if I revive Ray, he's gonna go Were-Tiger and bop the dude. If you revive Ray twice, his second chance gives you control of him, but he's barely gonna survive an attack. I don't think it's worth trying to roll. Gar and Ryu are gonna have to drop this dude the same way they dropped the Zombie Dragon, just without any of the freebies, like elemental weaknesses. I had another attempt and vaguely remembered debuffing the shit out of this dude in my one-shot run, so I turned to the move we learned all the way back when we killed that dog who totally deserved it, Snap. Snap does okay damage, but also lowers the foe's defense, and after it hitting a couple times, I start doing a couple hundred damage per turn. Oh yeah, gamers, this is it, this is the one. Despite this heavy advantage, I couldn't help myself. I used Last Resort on Gar and started spamming Blitz for 300 damage a turn, which, coupled with 2 unlucky crits against Ryu, saw my boys fall. The reprisal rate is killing me. I can clearly achieve this, I just need to keep it steady, no last resorts, unless I absolutely want to. There at bloody is easy as piss, and we pick up resist as well, which makes you immortal for a turn at the cost of 2 AP. If you're the point man in the attack formation, there is a 50% chance of being the target of a foe's attack. It could be 70%, I don't remember. Either way, extremely exploitable. We probably won't use it. Heaps of stuff happens. I get Momo and Peko, put Momo and Ryu under Emitai for a bit of extra AP because I keep running out. Momo's my new mage because Nina sucks. Ray's my new melee dude, and Ryu's gonna do whatever he's been doing, but smarter. Moving to the plant, we get Fire Strike from Flyman, and this is going to ensure my victory against the next boss, Huge Slug, who is deathly weak to fire. I tried to make him more weak, but Douse just doesn't stick. It's not long before he falls. Sure, he hit decently hard, but if you've conceptualized fire at any point in human history, this dude just melts. Ryu does nearly 300, taking point in the attack formation with his Fire Strike. Ray uses Last Resort into Double Blow for about 200. And Momo comes in third place using Wall of Fire for 50 damage. You know, it all helps, it all adds up. Next up is Shroom, who has no major weaknesses, but he does use fire. So after a failed attempt or two due to, Last Resort overuse, Ryu dons his Asbestos Armor and Ray the Ring of Fire, and we're off. Shroom's Headcracker attack does 3 melee hits to 1 dude, and we're not super powerful or anything, probably a pretty standard stat divide for a casual run, and Shroom just whomps us. It's looking like my next attempt is going to fail. We get him fairly low, he drops a blitz on a last resorted Ray, who somehow dodges one of the 3 strikes, but Ryu and Momo bite the dust. Ray outspeeds, so I queue up a blitz, which is 3 hits of 70 damage, and Shroom dies. Ray earned that experience. That is the toughest fight so far. Things are looking good for this video being interesting. Back on the far side of the world, we run through the tidal caves to save my blue-headed wife, Deez, and I pick up an ability, Sacrifice. This kills the man, but also drops all connecting foes to 1 HP. I tested it on random mobs, and it's not worth using as it's a status ability, and most foes worth using it on have solid status defense. Through to Geist, and if you've seen my one-shot run, you know how easy this fight is with Gloom, so I'm gonna try something way funnier. Our boy Geist has a little secret he doesn't want anyone to know. He has a 5 resist to status, which means that Gloom works, it turns him undead, makes him super weak to holy, but I noticed that Douse is the same type of attack, which means theoretically I can drop his fire resistance to 0 and shift this guy who formerly healed from fire to a bloke pathetically weak to it. He wears 2 giant braziers that cast flare on him for 60 to 90 damage a pop each turn. I don't even have to do anything now, this is clearly the intended way to win. If I have time, I might even lower his intelligence so they do a bit extra, but I'm copping it from melee hits. And they said Douse was useless. You ever seen a man say goodbye to his element before? Well, making Geist kill himself, probably the highlight of the run. Let's keep going. Up next is Angler, Big Fishy. Unfortunately, we don't have access to Momo, so we slap Gar in there to learn his technique, Thunderclap. I don't know if this is magical or physical. I've never used it. I just want Momo to thrive, and she's not. Once the Gloom ticks, Ray goes last resort and starts smacking this dude. I forgot Gloom didn't drop Fire Res as well. It seems to only drop Holy, as Fire was still doing nothing. Once I realised Ray could have been using the Silver Knife, one hit of double blow, did 300 damage, and we won. Could have halved the time of that fight, but that's alright, we got Thunderclap. The Ammonites on the Black Ship are up next, and if you ignore the instructions for the minigame and simply mash right as fast as you can, you just win this encounter, as half their turns disappear to the turrets. Their crippling weakness to thunder and our electrified blade, the Barbarossa on Ryu, make them easy targets. I can see how they didn't want to close out a big dungeon with a powerful boss, but I've always kind of been let down by these guys. The multi-boss thing isn't something you see too often, and that makes them far more formidable, but the fact that it's wasted on these guys is disappointing. What isn't disappointing is that Momo actually does passable damage with Thunderclap here, which is, small win for Momo. Moving to the comms tower, we pick up Bad Back, a technique which passes your turn because you played Breath of Fire 3 on release. We also farm these codgers for a good hour to get Ebon Fire. They use Magic Shuffle, which in itself isn't learnable but casts a random spell from a small pool, and one of those spells is learnable. Ebon Fire is non-elemental, even though it has fire in its name, so that'll be good to put on Momo, though how effective it'll be, who could say? Fixing up the satellite, we move on to Dragnir, where I quickly clear out the factory before I fight Elder, grabbing Magic Ball from the Egg Gang. This is a move learned from Migas back when you've got Tipo, and would have been useful at various points throughout the game, though I fear it's far too late now. Elder hurts us pretty bad. His physicals tend to do that. We're not the most robust characters. With reasonably low defenses, even lower when I use Last Resort with Ray, we get one shot off a double blow. While my levels have caught up to what the story generally dictates, my equipment is still lacking. It's not awful, but it's not optimized. Anyway, Air Raid does about 300, Ebon Fire does a little north of 100, and Ray only does 50 with a double blow. And I'm not talking 50 per hit, like mid-20s per hit. Anyway, with enough vitamins and ammonias, we barely get him. 500 odd damage, nothing to scoff at. That's about a tenth of his health on a good turn. The Desert of Death. We love him. I grab the Royal Sword and get a new ability called Cure on the way to Manmo, which fully restores one guy. I didn't save once, but nobody's ever lost to Manmo, so it's fine, we're safe. We approach Kayazan, still no idea how to pronounce that. We buy all the best equipment at a discounted rate, mind you, then head to the container yard to grab one of the final techniques. This is the Archmage. He drops the best weapon in the game for Ray and second best for Ryu. I cannot kill him with learned abilities. It's sad, but it's true. However, what I can do is learn Mind Sword from him, which is usually obtained from the Master Emitai. Mind Sword takes your intelligence and pits it against the foe's physical defense, and it does okay damage. Momo can finally do something. Okay, maybe not. He was kicking the shit out of me, and what I didn't know is that when you're down to one fella, he casts Benediction on your whole party, which revives everybody. This is also learnable. That's insane. I've never seen this ability, never used it, barely even heard of it, and in this particular run, I'm not going to use it, but it's potentially incredibly powerful. Now, this is usually the point of the game where I do a fake out. I say, let's beat the game, and then I go fishing instead, but there's not a lot of need to fish now. Like, nothing's going to change the next 3 fights and make them any easier. Entering Station Miria, I have a change of heart about Ray and switch to a low-level Gar in an attempt to actually do some damage, but he kinda has the same issues as Ray, so I do eventually switch back. Before that though, we get Triple Blow, likely the strongest attack I'll have access to for the final 3 bosses, so I give it to Ray and we push Chimera. Triple Blow is a better version of Double Blow but costs 5 AP. With Ray having 40, we are already heavily restricted, but Chimera's not so tough. 7,500 health and Paralyze, a rare status with no way to prevent. Luckily, if you've been agility maxing like your boy, it becomes a non-issue. He's not too bad. At one point, I even go Last Resort with Ray and start triple blowing him for 1,000 damage per turn. Momo's getting a lot of use out of that Cure ability we picked up in the desert. Ryu's Air Raid still does solid damage, and whenever he hits the Mole near, it seems to target Ray, who has a Thunder Ring. Easiest shit I've ever done. Now we're on to Eden, where we find our boy Tipo and a thrust to the Mind Zone. Ryu can one-shot the enemies here, so we gain quite a bit of experience simply not fleeing from battle and come up against Arwan, who becomes a complete pushover with a frost ring and a life bangle. To die, he has to use 4 physical turns in a row, and the closest he got was 3. There's a learnable ability from this guy called Chill, which hits everyone and lowers agility. I'd say this will be great on Momo, but we've got like no bosses left and magic sucks. It's D-Lord time! 12,500 health and no major resistances to elements. If he weren't so brutally powerful, this could be a fun boss fight. But unfortunately, I had to get a little sweaty as I forgot to save before the Mind Palace and didn't want to lose, 2 to 3 hours of progress. So how'd I do it? Well, first things first, we opened with Last Resort. It's not that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I understand the risks. I simply refuse to accept reality. It actually works out pretty well, as Ray's putting out 600 damage per turn, Momo's feeding him 10 AP per turn with transfer, which I forgot to mention I picked up, and between our fire absorption and ice resistance, the only major threat is a hard physical, which he also packs. Triple blow from this dude is a guaranteed kill on Momo and Ray, but Ryu can tank 1, and he doesn't use it that much. Then at half health, he switches to maining Sirocco, which is a fire-wind element, so he no longer feeds us health, but we don't take damage from it. Ray has a wisdom ring to give him a tiny bit more magic defense, and we very slowly take him out, one extremely risky, last resorted triple blow at a time. Well, doesn't that just beat all? We get the key card and head for the final push. There are 2 more abilities to obtain here, Thunderstrike from the Mist Armors and Evil Eye from the Vampires. The first does thunder damage and paralysis, the second just paralysis. These would be handy if they worked on Miria, but they don't, so I'm gonna skip them. The boss rush goes how you'd expect, reasonably well. I get a chance to try a few underused abilities like Chill and Thunderclap, but really these are feel-good experience fodder before the final boss. There's nothing of note. Now the vampires drop a sword called the Life Stealer, and I've never had a Life Stealer before, so I'm gonna have a couple attempts at getting it without over-leveling. I'm in the early 40s, a pretty balanced range for Miria, especially given our circumstances. Alright, fuck it, I got bored after 3, I don't even need it, see Miria's dead. Ha! How'd that happen? A slightly more aggressive strat than D-Lord, but functionally the same. Last resort into Triple Strike, Air Raid is still goated come endgame, and Ebb and Fire with Momo, who doubled as the healer and AP giver to Ray. There was a couple close calls, but once I realised that Mjolnir is always going to hit Ray because I believed it would, a mid-battle switch to the Thunder Ring prevented anything catastrophic, and there we are, the credits. So what did we learn? Air Raid is great, Jump is also fantastic, and Learned Magic is somehow worse than regular magic. The end of the game becomes leaning on staples of a casual run, that is double and triple blow, but I could have easily achieved the same end with Jump as the primary damage dealer, it just would have taken slightly longer. I honestly expected a bit more chaos, a bit more of a struggle, though I guess when you're pre-thinking about stat weightings, any run is going to be relatively stress-free. One thing I do lament is there not being any earlier heals, so I could remove item use entirely. If I could somehow get at least 2 fire rings sooner, I could start targeting myself with Burn and Lava Wall for healing, but it's just not realistic. I did little research before I started, and in hindsight, the only thing I'd change is Master Use in that I wouldn't, but I thought I'd get trapped with bad moves and wanted to account for that to save tens of hours replaying the game. Well, that was fun, rip to Geist, thanks for watching, I hope you learned something.